Hey guys, welcome back to the Kelsi Sheren Perspective. I wanted to bring you guys something a little different for the 300th episode. As we've pivoted into more serious conversations outside of resiliency, we obviously have to start taking a little bit of account into what's going on in the globe, in Canada, and the United States. You guys have seen this girl kind of in a few big podcasts recently. Most recently, a friend, Sean Ryan, had Katarina on, and you have decided to take on a task that feels like is an impossible task. And you're quite young doing that. And I gotta understand what made you want to get into the area of expertise that you're in right now.
Yeah, I've always been very interested in organized crime and journalism, obviously. So I love human-based storytelling and keeping the public informed in the most honest way possible.
Okay.
So that was always non-negotiable. And I worked in mainstream media here in Canada at the beginning of my career. Yeah, okay. And I actually had a really positive experience, but it was a matter of what I wanted to cover and how to branch out into that. And also due to my age and the way like seniority works, particularly in like Canadian mainstream media, I just wasn't going to achieve the freedom that I was looking for early on in my career to cover what I thought was important. So, I mean, I did cover a lot of important stories during the beginning of my career, but it wasn't international. It wasn't about OCGs, anything like that. So then, because I speak Spanish, I thought, Mexico would be a good place to start because we're always inundated with cartel news, border coverage, particularly at the southern border. And then there were so many political changes during this time in my career when I decided to pivot. And I had a pretty good understanding, or so I thought at the time, of the political and cultural context of what was going on. So I went to Mexico and started freelancing there. And initially I was covering politics, briefly covering crime, and covering a lot of health stories too, like medical tourism. And then when I started covering cartels and organized crimes, I realized that a lot of people were very interested, and I was kind of filling a gap. There's a lot of really incredible organized crime journalists and freelance journalists, but I started kind of looking at certain gaps where there wasn't coverage and acquiring sources and information that were shocking to me. Mm-hmm. So I really locked in on that niche, on that beat, and it took me kind of for a ride finding out a lot of information that we hadn't seen headlining, honestly, previous to the coverage I started to do. Right. So, like, one I know that interests you was everything going on at the northern border, mm-hmm. and how organized crime groups have, over the last decade particularly, infiltrated Canada as a means to get to the US.
Right.
So that's kind of how this all started. It's really not that deep. I think a lot of people are like, there's no way she's a spy. Oh my God.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's a general understanding of what you do, of an overview. But when you look at your why, I think that's something that when you look, you're fairly young. I mean, I'm just about a decade older than you. And the one thing that I see, at least with journalism and younger individuals, is you either get the people that really want to lean into the hard conversations, really want to lean into like what's genuinely going on, not, behind the rose-colored glasses. Oh my God, Vancouver has a drug problem. Like, you get those people who want to understand where it's coming from, why it's happening, and where are the failures in the system. And then you kind of get the rest of the people that just that ignorance is bliss conversation is a big reality here in this country. If you just put your head in the sand, you just do your job, you go home, you look after your family, then nothing's ever bad in Canada. Nothing ever matters in Canada. It can't be that bad. And I just had this debate with Her Take, and it was with Jillian Michaels and Lindy Lee. We were having a conversation. We're going to get into some of these things with Venezuela and Mexico. But one of the things that they were stating was, okay, Trump is going into Mexico. And I kind of laughed. I said, you've always been to Mexico. They've just been running shoes, not boots on the ground. And I said, if you think that you're going to somehow convince a community of decades of built-in fear and ideology that you're going to now all of a sudden throw their hands up against the cartel, the people who have either been their gods or who have been funding their entire communities, you got another thing coming. The cartels have an issue, not just in Mexico, but big time in Canada. And I think that there is this again, the ignorance is bliss. That doesn't happen in Canada. Fentanyl doesn't come from Canada. We don't have trafficking in Canada. Meanwhile, you have, and like you've stated on other shows, you have massive encampments and people grouping all throughout the country. So as a younger journalist, you said you started in mainstream media, you had a good experience. What made you want to transition then into a more, I don't say aggressive role, but take on topics that the majority of people, when they see even one storyline, can't sleep for the rest of their lives?
Yeah, well, I have like a really fucked up threshold for fears. So that was something that I knew that I would be able to go in and do, and it wouldn't be too mentally taxing for me. Okay. But also, I always wanted to cover stories that led to a major human toll, where there was a lot of collateral damage and there were a lot of people with very critical stories to tell, but they didn't have the voice or the platform to bring their stories to the forefront. And so for me, that was always a thing. There was kind of like this social justice aspect in the storytelling. But to your point of Canadians kind of having this ignorance is bliss ideology, I can actually understand why that is. And
yeah, so it's horrific.
Sometimes I wish that I was like that, because I know that it actually leads to a very peaceful livelihood. Yeah. And anytime I'm in Canada, so being between Mexico, the US, and Canada feels like the most calm place. There isn't
outwardly on the outside from what it looks like looking in.
And when I'm here too, we have to understand is that, for example, the cartels are going to be very chaotic and violent in Mexico, and then that spills over into the United States, especially in those border regions in Texas and California. But here, that's not the case, because this has been the whole motive for them is that they can maintain a low profile here. Law enforcement is sort of looking the other way, or at least not aggressively attacking this problem that we have here. And that's perfect for them. So they aren't going to conduct violence here. And if they do, they're going to do it in a way where it doesn't reflect back onto them. And I've talked about this previously, is that when I first started covering cartels being very active here in Canada, and particularly regarding fentanyl and the precursors coming in from China, a lot of people in Canadian law enforcement were telling me that, well, we don't actually have any hard evidence or previous court cases that indicate that the cartels are conducting hits here or responsible for the majority of drug trafficking. And that's because they've managed to conduct all of these operations and increase just how lucrative they are behind pre-existing local organized crime groups. So that started back in the day with BC Bud, because our marijuana was super popular. Like prior to legalization. And so the United Nations gang here partnered up with the Sinaloa cartel, and that's where that sort of cooperation began, because they were bringing in BC Bud into California and then distributing it through their networks across the United States. And everyone knew about BC Bud. I mean, during this time, if I would go to Mexico and people in like Michoacan would be like, oh, you're from Vancouver? You guys have the best weed. And it was like we were globally known for that. And that's when that Canadian cartel connection began. And they managed to sort of turn this relationship into something a lot more than initially met the eye. Because then when we start talking about the synthetic deadly drugs like fentanyl and the precursors that are used to make it, and how much Chinese infiltration we already have in this country, it was extremely easy for them to take a business that was already operating at the level of like a Fortune 500 and turn it into this fucking transnational network that nobody was paying any attention to. Whereas in the US, I mean, depending on the administration, but for the most part, even if we're talking like at a state level, there was this sort of magnifying glass on the cartels and who they were operating with domestically in the US, whether that be American citizens or Mexican nationals who were operating in the US. And so that magnifying glass was always kind of there. I mean, a lot of people forget that years before Trump signed the executive order designating cartels as foreign terrorist organizations, Texas Governor Greg Abbott, I think it was in 2021 had already signed his own executive order designating them as FTOs. Mm-hmm. And so, like I said, even though we're now looking at it from a federal level, governors and state actors were already looking at it from within their own communities, especially along the border. Mm-hmm. In Canada, we don't see that oversight at any level of government. And it's really unfortunate because it has infiltrated our society to a really tragic point. Mm-hmm. Like, personally, I believe, because I've been like covering this so thoroughly for a while now, when the US designated the cartels and like Tren de Aragua and whoever as foreign terrorist organizations, and then Canada followed suit because their incentive was to avoid tariffs, mm-hmm. I thought it was an absolute slap in the face to anyone in Canada who has disproportionately been affected by the drug crisis. Mm-hmm. Because you're telling me that during the pandemic, we had more people dying of deadly fentanyl overdose deaths than we were of COVID. Mm-hmm. And yet, we're not going to call anyone a terror organization, even though they're basically conducting chemical warfare. Mm-hmm. We're not going to check what's coming in through our railways or through our ports. That wasn't the case. It was about being strong-armed by President Donald Trump. Yeah. Get a grip. Yeah.
Well, that's what happens when you don't have a leadership. That has been the ongoing conversation that we've been covering now for a significant amount of time, where, this started in 2015, the second the Liberal government stepped into places of power, when the CCP started to pay off and buy out. Our senators are not expensive, just like any U.S. senator. They're not expensive. You're looking at 10 to 15 grand a person to kind of get a vote to flip. And we saw that with the MAID movement, with the legalization of euthanasia in 2016. And we've seen that now continuously as we start to pour funds into other programs that make no sense, i.e., hundreds of billions of dollars to every other government minus ours. And we've neglected the border to such an extent that I try to explain this. And I'm so glad that you are saying this out loud, because the majority of Canadians' voices, it's the only way they get out and the truth gets out is to go down to the States, do shows in the States, and then those trickle back into the country, and people have then a somewhat idea.
That's exactly what I did.
And that's why I wanted to talk to you, because that's how I was able to do it too. You can't do anything here. You have to do it there, and it has to be force-fed through. You talked about something that was really important for the majority of Americans that are not consciously aware. I call us their hat that's on fire. That's how I describe us. We have a border that is predominantly unchecked, that you can hop across on foot and get through absolutely no problem. During COVID, the border of the truck border in British Columbia, there is a park we called it COVID Park, okay? Have you heard of this one before?
No.
Massive. I'm actually quite surprised. The amount of trafficking that was going through. So it's essentially this no man land space that isn't America, but isn't Canada. And you don't need a passport or to go through security to get onto that piece of land. It's very strange. During COVID, Americans could come to that park and Canadians could go to that park.
And they would meet.
And you would meet.
Yeah.
And they started putting tents there. Mm-hmm. And I would speak to the RCMP frequently. What the hell is going on in these tents? And they're like, what do you think is going on in these tents? Kids were coming through and then all of a sudden not being there anymore. Drugs, weapons, everything was coming through. And it was acting like it was totally fine. And no one ever put a stop to it. They just now this year said you can't go to that park, which is obnoxious. The point I'm getting at is our border spans a significant stretch that is unprotected, that is either water or just forestry, and things are coming through at a pace that people are just not willing to acknowledge. We saw it on Quebec. We saw it in Ontario when we saw all the migrants coming through. Mm-hmm. And they're just being allowed to stay to the tune of $82,000 per person and taxpayer that is being forced to pay them that amount of money when they come in as illegal immigrants. And so with Canada and the way that our border works, I want to talk about the ports. And I think that's the ports and the railways, because again, they're not checked. You've stated this. That kind of went viral, woke people up a lot. The Vancouver port is one of the most trafficked ports. The Chinese use the hell out of it. They have no problems getting through it. And I'm trying to understand, how is it that CSIS is reporting this? The RCMP are somewhat talking about it. I have some friends that work with, Interpol and all of that. And they're saying, like, we're aware, but we can't touch it. We don't have the funds. They just cut their budget $93 million. So how is it that our ports are being so corrupted? Our police are not able to do anything. How are we supposed to move forward here in stopping this? Because Canada is flowing into America and everyone thinks it's Mexico.
Yeah. I mean, Mexico's there's still a bit of a flow, but it's certainly not as significant, especially since this new administration took office in January because there was a major border crackdown at the southern border on both sides. Like Mexico also cracked down. And so, but for us, that was not the case at all. And I have a problem with the whole, okay, CSIS is saying this and RCMP is saying another thing, because there seems to absolutely be no collaboration there. Right. I saw the head of the RCMP was asked how many organized crime groups are operating in Canada. And he said, off the top of my head, I don't know. When just a few days before that, CSIS actually published a report saying that there were 600 and something. I don't remember the exact number. 600 and something individual organized crime groups with their own individual hierarchies operating in Canada. And then he's asked again, no, but like, just take a guess. How many? And he's like, thousands. And I was like, oh, brother.
The disconnect is wild there.
It's really bad. So how do you expect anything to change when our National Intelligence Service and our National Police Force don't even have the same information and aren't so how are they going to collaborate on operations to crack down on our over 5,000 mile long border that's majorly unprotected? It's like double the size of the southern border. And it's super cheap to cross too.
Yes.
So like I could go on an Instagram page and find like some Indian people who are crossing people. They're like experts at it now.
Yeah.
And I could call them and be like, I want to cross from New York into Ontario today. Okay, $4,000 cash, perfect. And then if you get caught or like they're like, hey, actually there's Border Patrol, they'll wait and they'll take you again. They don't charge you again. They have a really good business model, honestly.
So they're not like the cartel. Well, they'll kill you. They'll just take you
or
again.
Like leave you for dead. Yeah,
just leave you.
These guys, like the northern border traffickers, have a really honest business model in the sense that it's like, we're gonna get you across.
So Canadian, it hurts.
You're gonna get the result.
Okay.
Which like. Yeah, I low-key, I kind of respect that. But
I mean, at least you're not killing anyone, leaving them for dead, and you're kind of honoring what you said you would. So
I think the reason why they also do that is it literally prevents drawing attraction.
Right.
Even if it means that they're taking a bit of a financial hit. Unlike the southern border where thousands of people were dying, thousands of people were getting picked up, or their human remains were found.
Right.
That's not happening at our northern border. I mean, there have been some fatalities for sure, but it's also during the winter months and it's families who are very unprepared and their young children, right? And so what needs to happen is there obviously needs to be more collaboration, but for the most part, a lot of my sources within Canadian law enforcement have told me that they simply just don't have the resources or the manpower to deal with something like this. And I completely can understand why, because I'm very open about this, but I really believe that we don't have a Canadian justice system. Like we have a legal system, but there's no justice that comes with it. You see a lot of high risk violent offenders just walking around in society, and people are susceptible to whatever this person may want to do at any point in time.
Right.
And so if we can't deal with domestic violent crimes, how do we expect our national law enforcement or authorities to take on this crazy large beast, which is transnational organized crime groups?
Right.
It's not feasible. There's absolutely no way that can happen. And not to mention, when I first started reporting on the fentanyl production happening in Canada.
Abbotsford, Langley, British Columbia is a hub.
And I went to the trap house where they were making fentanyl and cutting it and ready to sell it in Canada, but then also preparing the precursors for pickup for them to be sent into the US. They're typically driven into California and then distributed across their network in the US. I had so many Canadian law enforcement reach out to me and say that I was lying or that it was untrue. And I was just like, well, I literally talked to these guys who are like Mexican nationals working with local organized crime groups, like a lot of Persian, Chinese, and Indian crime groups. So we got like Red Scorpion, Brothers Keepers, United Nations. People always ask me about HA. It's not the same. They're doing a lot of money laundering. It's very different.
HA is a different duck. They don't want to touch anything like that. They don't want to be known with them. They don't want to be connected to them in that way. They want to keep what they've been doing for a very long time. Nobody touches them. They kind of focus over here. I don't see them connecting very often.
And we don't have like those big wig names in the HAs as we once did. I would say like our big wig Canadian right now is Ryan Wedding, and he's based in Mexico, and he's very heavily and loyally aligned with El Chapo's faction of the Sinaloa cartel. And so when you take that into consideration, right, you can just imagine what's happening domestically, but nothing is being done about it. And of course, like you look time and time again, how there's so much Chinese infiltration here and who's profiting off of it, what they're trying to do for the whole like degradation of Western ideology and all of that. But it goes back to like their history. Honestly, it's really genius if you think about it. Like that's what the British did to their dynasties, like way back in the day, chemical warfare, right? Yep. Kill them with drugs. And so you learn and you adapt and then you do the same thing to your own enemies. But yeah, I don't think there's an end to this.
This episode is brought to you by Ketone IQ. And if you guys have not seen me drinking it, it has been behind me. It has been everywhere. But ketones, I want to tell you a little bit more because you ask all the time, are a powerful macronutrient and they cross the blood-brain barrier. They supercharge your brain. And not only do they do that, I have reported and seen my own sharper focus and stronger endurance in next level performance. I use them before podcasts, before keynote speeches, and before I work daily with clients and when I get on my road bike. But this is not just that feeling good type ad. This is for real. This is backed by science. And in a placebo-controlled study, Ketone IQ users saw a 19% increase in sprint power, 13% in more peak power, and 10% less fatigue. And the ketone levels spiked 5 times in just 20 minutes. So when it comes to recovery, Ketone IQ improves blood flow, muscle oxygenation, and even boosts EPO, which is critical for your stamina and the bounce back factor. So if you guys are chasing that edge, physical or mental, Ketone IQ is the shortcut to getting into those zones. Do yourself a favor, go over to ketone.com and use the code Kelsi. You're going to save 30% off your next subscription. And I do promise you, ketone is no joke. Ketone fuels the flow. And I'm telling you, it is the best thing I have ever gotten into. A couple things there I wanted to point out. Do you think that, and I know, again, knowing enough RCMP, being a military member, it's a very specific type of person who's A-type, who doesn't want to admit that maybe they're wrong, that they're missing something, that maybe they're not seeing it. And how could somebody of your age who, you know, like the stereotypes are real. You're a pretty girl. You're investigating the cartels. You're investigating the police. Like, why would they allow you to see? Why would they let you in? Why would they trust you? I think that's
it's
a reality.
So funny. People always ask me that. Why do I get access or how do I? But nobody asks other journalists who do the exact same thing.
And then I couldn't agree with you more. And I didn't bring it up because I think that's the stereotype. And I think that's why the police and certain officers are going to look at you that way and go, well, how would you know if I've been doing this forever? I don't know, but you know? Why would you know?
Yeah, even though they clearly suck at their jobs, honestly. One thing about me, you know, I may be young, but I'm good at my job. And I'm not afraid to admit that.
There's nothing wrong with that either.
I think it's very pathetic when people are bad at their jobs, actually. It's like the one thing that you're supposed to do right.
I don't disagree.
I think that I have a lot of sources within Canadian law enforcement who are actually very solid. Yeah. They have been clocking what's going on. Right. They share a lot of information with me and they're frustrated.
Of course they are.
And then it's funny because then if some of my things about Canada go kind of viral or it's reaching the right ears, they're like, people are listening to what's happening. And so I think that is kind of a step is you have to acknowledge the fact that there is a problem.
Right.
And what a lot of people fail to understand is you just take a walk down East Hastings and you know that there's a fucking problem.
It's crazy that you bring up East Hastings. So we're in Vancouver. People know I'm based here. So we'll just say I'm in Vancouver.
Yeah, people know I'm from here.
Okay, perfect. I try to keep a distance for both of us and both of our sakes. We're solid that way. But Vancouver,
it's okay.
Yeah, it's not okay for me right now.
No,
so,
right.
So Vancouver in itself, I've had a lot of RCMP members on who are gang units, right? So we talk about Surrey. Surrey is a hub of some of the most dangerous Indian individuals that we bring over in harbor, and it's cute. It's a cute vibe. And we talk about this regularly, but I have said this to others. If you have not been to Vancouver or you've never been here 10 years ago and you've come here now, it looks like the Walking Dead. You cannot bring people around here. You should not bring children in that direction. You should not bring anything around there. And then when you start to look at things like safe injection sites in all of these areas and the continuous pumping of drugs and the catch and release program, the no bail reform, all of the problems we're seeing in Canada are based a lot of times around the economy and drugs. Trafficking is massive in Langley. We just had a bust happen like 6 months ago at a Langley hotel.
They are always saying now, like every week, largest Canadian bust in history.
It's like, okay. but it just keeps going up and up and up. It's because you haven't been paying attention. Now you're catching on and realizing. It's not that I don't think that this can stop. I'm like an incurable optimist, but I'm also a realist on the other side of me.
I'm like not an optimist in the slightest sense.
Well, I mean, because, listen, when you get a little older and your trauma starts to creep up, you'll have to face it at some point and you'll realize you gotta have some positivity or life just is dark. So what I'll tell you is that in what we're seeing now, I believe that there's got to be some solution. Otherwise, what's the point of this country even existing?
But those safe injection sites and the safe supply isn't the solution at all. Because
no, it's not. It's dangerous.
Anytime
it worse.
And anytime I go talk to the people on East Hastings or people who are using drugs, whether it's like recreationally or they're in the throes of addiction,
right.
They always have to supplement their safe supply with illicit drugs because it's not enough and it's not strong enough.
Right.
So like if you're going to give people drugs and be like, okay, use the government's drugs.
Right.
Give them enough.
Give them the right drugs.
If I'm telling you I'm an alcoholic and you're like, okay, well, I'm going to give you alcohol. I don't want like a shitty juice box full of juicy wine.
Give me
a fucking bottle of Grey Goose.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I hear you. I've always been, even in college, always been opposed to safe injection sites. I think they're a problem. I think they feed the problem. Yes, they have.
And it harbors a lot of violence.
Tons of violence. And then you hear about shelters where people won't go to shelters because they're like, well, go to the shelter. It's not safe there. No. People are getting raped. They're getting killed. Real things
held
are happening.
Hostage, like in the SROs here.
Well, and that's another thing. So if I see this somehow, is there any way that you see this getting better with the current administration, with the current government, with the current way that Canada is viewing addiction, viewing violence? No. Okay.
No, because also even you have like our border czar being like, I can't talk to, I have no say in what our border patrol agents are doing or what our law enforcement does. So why are you the fucking border czars then?
Exactly.
And like, I think at this point, well, what should have happened is anyone that was running for office, a major part of their policy should have to deal with addressing addiction and like the overdose death crisis.
Right.
And for me, it's like the majority of the people, particularly in Canada, who are in the throes of addiction, they have, it's generational at this point. So changing that is not a matter of put them in rehab. It's like a whole overhaul of what's happening when their children are born and how their family units are receiving resources or like managing their way through life.
Right.
Because you see a lot of people here, most of them, first of all, have traumatic brain injuries. A lot of them have CTE, whether that's from child abuse or injuries during addiction. And then a lot of them, they've faced a lot of abuse, and then their parents and now their grandparents were also in the throes of addiction. Right. And I think it's important to mention, like when you say, a lot of the Indian people in Surrey and we're bringing them here, those are also generational people. Actually, a lot of those people, they're more Canadian than me. Their families have been here generationally longer than mine. So they understand how the Canadian government works and how Canadian law enforcement works.
Right.
And I always tell Americans, like, to put it in perspective, especially because when I was working in mainstream media, I covered a lot of domestic crime and like a lot of child murders, unfortunately. And so this is what I always say, and it's not real advice, but it's like, I always tell my girlfriends, if your boyfriend cheats on you, kill him. You're not going to do much time at all. Honestly.
No, you won't.
But that, exactly. And it doesn't even matter how you do it, whether it's a heat of the moment thing or whether it's literally a planned murder. Yeah. So this is what we're dealing with, and criminals know that.
Yes.
They know that in Canada there's an insatiable appetite for drugs, and none of the people in charge or who are supposed to uphold a level of integrity and care for the community are doing any of their responsibilities to ensure that this doesn't continue on. So how are you supposed to stop a generational problem that all we're doing is kind of like throwing clean syringes at them and being like, well, now you just like won't get HIV or hepatitis.
Right.
That's not the main issue here.
Right.
The main issue is to ensure that as we continue, these people continue to live their lives, build families, that those families are strong, that they stick together, that they have the right resources, and that they're disincentivized from doing drugs in the first place. And they're more incentivized to actually build like a healthy life for themselves.
Right.
It's very sad for me when I walk and I talk to people, particularly in those areas, because I mean, who's to say that I was not like this far off from also doing that. Like the same thing.
Well, all of us. It's one injury, one trauma, one thing away from now I'm into drugs. I know plenty of people who were athletes, like high athletes, whether it was CEOs or otherwise. They just couldn't get the kick from what they were doing. The sport wasn't doing it enough.
And the CTE. It's a lot of it comes with the brain injuries.
Yeah, I have one of those. So I understand that.
Don't ever try drugs because you will get addicted.
Yeah, no, I don't do drugs. I'm a plant medicine person. I don't do pharmaceuticals, and I don't do drugs. Plants and me are friends, and we respect the boundaries. It's like the Ontario, I say it's like the Ontario slogan. It's like, know my limit, play within it. I'm super solid, go with God.
Isn't that like the BC Lotto or the Canadian Lotto?
It's the Ontario Lotto. I'm like, know my limit, I play within it. That stuck with me as a child. But you're not wrong. You're talking about a broken system. You're not even talking
That's a few blocks away from where all these precursors are coming in at the Port of Vancouver.
And that's what's insane. So this is why I was so excited when you said yes to talk, because there are no people in Canada that are willing to say what's really happening here, other than a few of us that are, I guess, just okay with being called every name in the book and horrific death threats. You're willing to talk about the port. This is so important. An old neighbor of mine used to work at the port. And I always had these questions about, okay, you're getting all of these things coming in. I import stuff all over for my companies. I use the ocean. It comes on the port. I know how long it takes. I know how often it's searched. My containers would get searched way too often for a jewelry company. Let's just go with that. So I'm thinking to myself, well, if my stuff's being searched all the time, then that should mean other things are being searched. But that doesn't sound like what's happening.
That's so interesting. Your stuff was being searched really frequently?
Frequently.
Huh.
Very frequently.
You're the first person I've heard that from.
Well, you know what's crazy about that is all that I was ever importing is we make jewelry out of bullets, and then we donate the money to veteran organizations.
Well, perhaps that's why.
Well, but it wasn't stuff that looked like bullets. It was like the necklaces I'm wearing or like the earrings I'm wearing. It didn't have they were sunglasses. Like it was never anything where it was like, oh, these are just raw bullet casings. It was like it was a necklace that was from recycled casings. So we were getting checked frequently, and we were getting held, and you pay the fine, yada yada yada. But I had never heard the statistic, the 1%. And when I heard that, I was like, that's literally the hook. I'm like, I have to talk to you about the ports, because the ports seem like they should be one of the most checked areas. They're bringing ships
especially here.
That's my point. So can you walk me through some of your sources and what you're hearing more ports related and rail related? Because I think we forget about the rails. We have a rail that goes right to the US.
Yeah. And a lot of it is going through rail. And it's actually like
interesting.
So less than 1% of what's coming in through the ports is being checked.
Right.
Essentially, nothing on rail is being checked. Like, it's basically next to none.
How, though? How is that? How?
I don't know. I'm not the fucking port authority.
Well, come on. Give me some more answers, because I know you've talked to people. So how is it that they're getting around it? Do you have an idea?
Well, I am definitely under the impression that I think a lot of like the longshoremen are on the payroll.
That was going to be my next thing, and I didn't want to say it, but you said it, so it's fine. So let's go there.
Yeah, no, it is. And I've always said this. I think that there's also like CBP officers at the southern border. Well, I actually know that there are that are on the payroll.
Okay.
And that's really the only way you can do this. But I say this all the time, right? Like, these organized crime groups are Fortune 500s. There's a hierarchy within it.
Yes.
And they have to also distribute money accordingly, which means paying off the very authorities who are supposed to catch them in the act.
Right.
Now, what would be the incentive for this? Money. Even though longshoremen do very well,
they
right?
make great money.
But beyond that, there's also that sort of personal and cultural connection, because we talk about how the local gangs here who are typically operating with the cartels and have been since BC Bud days.
Yeah.
Are typically of South Asian descent. A lot of longshoremen at the port are also of South Asian descent. And I'm not saying that Indian people are criminals. Okay. Same thing with Mexicans. I'm not saying that. But what I need people to understand is when you're living in a country like the US and Canada that are like cultural melting pots or cultural mosaics, whatever the fuck you want to go by.
Multiculturalism, strongholds.
Yeah. And I love that shit. But you have to understand that those cultures and those communities will always stick together.
Yes.
I've seen it within my own family and within my own friend groups who come from certain ethnic backgrounds. Mm-hmm. That's how that works. And that's actually how you keep alive each individual culture and all of that. Now, when that's happening, though, you start to build connections with nefarious people who are operating within your community, right? Mm-hmm. And if that means making a little bit of extra money, or what we've been seeing a lot of lately, especially within like the South Asian community here, if people are saying no.
That's what's going to be my next question.
They're facing retaliation back in India.
Threats of violence.
And it's really happening.
Yeah.
Like rape and murder, home invasion. And obviously India, their government sucks. Like, it's just, there's no safety.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of insecurity there. And so...
Are they facing that here as well? Because I'm sure you've seen there's a lot of shootings.
That's always happened.
Okay.
That's kind of like sloppy shit that's going on.
But they're not threatening. So say someone's at a port, they say, no, I'm not doing this. They're not talking about...
Okay, well then here's your address of where your aunt, your uncle, and your little niece and nephew live in India, and this is their village, and this is the car that they drive.
Right.
And we have a guy who's ready to go up to them and chop their heads off.
Right. And that's all it
there's
takes.
nothing you can do about it.
Yeah.
So yeah. So of course there's that financial incentive, but beyond that, a lot of people are literally being forced to participate in this.
Right.
And if they don't, they may face some sort of retaliation here, but the brunt of it is back home.
Back over there. So it's the loose end game. It's the same sort of thing we see when anybody, it's coercion. It's if you don't take the money, that's fine. You don't have to take the money.
And it's even happening with a lot of the truckers, because you know that a lot of like the rig business is run by the South Asian groups too. And so I was just in Chicago because in Illinois you have like these major highways that it's very much like that sort of narco highway, right?
My parents are long haul truck drivers.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. So do they traffic drugs?
Last I checked, based off the way they live, I don't think Dad traffics drugs. Although, I mean, I'm sure he would be up for it at this point with the rates.
I can get him the right contacts.
God, you answer questions like I do, and it is exactly what I hoped it would be. Please continue.
When I was there, I did a ride along with law enforcement in Chicago. And we talked about this because I said, okay, what if these smaller independent trucking companies or the very drivers don't want to traffic the product? And Kenny, he also has a podcast. He was like, well, then any family members back in India are going to face retaliation. And that's been happening for a while now. But I think since there's been this more heightened collaboration between cartels and domestic criminal organizations in the US and Canada, it's definitely increased that sort of back home violence that we're seeing, like exported violence, or I don't know.
Hey, I think that's a great term. You should probably coin that. When you're looking at Canada, the US, you're looking at import export in terms of drugs versus, say, humans.
Oh, fuck.
I know. I'm sorry. I don't mean to it's a beautiful day. It's sunny out.
Yeah, I've just been on this story really hard for the past 2 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not good.
And then, listen, the reason I bring it up, I have a very, very dear friend of mine who works in trafficking. She works to...
I don't know how people do that. This was my first human trafficking story, and I want to fucking die.
Yeah, it's no joke. And the reason I bring it up is because it's not being discussed about this
because
country.
People are scared, and I'm scared,
and I hear you, and we should have every right to be fearful of those things, but the only way that you fix problems is you shed light in the dark, and that's already what you're doing.
But not when it comes to human trafficking.
See, here's the thing about human trafficking. It's everywhere. It's way more prevalent in Canada than anybody wants to acknowledge, and it's nasty, and it's coming in ways that people would have no clue. I think the reason I bring it up is because we see it in a very stereotypical way. Like somebody gets brought in as a nanny, their passports get taken, and then they get trafficked through. We see that a lot in California. I mean, if you look at most of the restaurants, most of those places, it's, what does Alana call it? There's, essentially it's like, we're not trafficking you, but we're not paying you, but we're holding your passport. So you're going to do what we want. You're going to go where we tell you to go. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't look as nasty as what films make it look like, where they're being grabbed, put in a vehicle and sent off in a shipping container, and now they're owned by somebody else. So Canada is full of it, and I speak about it often because I don't think people understand the level of what's going on coming through ports, coming through other countries. Can you give me whatever you're comfortable giving me, what you've kind of seen so far?
Okay, we can go over all three countries. So in Canada, I think that most of the women that are being trafficked, it's that whole nanny thing, but there's a lot of local girls that are being trafficked. They're strung out on drugs, and then they're being held, and they have some sort of debt that they owe or to pay to these gangsters, and they're very fearful for their lives. And they don't have anyone advocating for them. Yeah. And they're being held up in hotels here or wherever. And being sold, to the top bidders for sex. And a lot of them are they're very much on drugs, and they just can't even advocate for themselves at that point. And actually a lot of them I find especially the cases that I've kind of looked into, again, it's like a generational thing. Like their moms were trafficked. Right. Their sisters have been trafficked. So it's like, well, this happens to all of us. How do you even feel like you could advocate for yourself when you've been surrounded by this your whole life?
And this is normalized behavior. It's not acceptable, but somehow it's normalized in the home.
It's like, well, he's not my trafficker. He's my boyfriend. Yes. That's like the very common narrative that's happening here with human trafficking. Okay. And it's a lot of, it's a lot of Indigenous women too, which is why like you see this whole thing about the missing and murdered. Any region you go to, if there's a missing and murdered women problem, there's a fucking trafficking problem.
Which is crazy because the RCMP are supposed to be super involved, especially with our Indigenous population. And I know we're all laughing for a reason. I get it.
Dude, I have a big problem too when it comes with talking about cops combating trafficking, because all of the major trafficking cases that I've covered or investigated had cops fucking the girls.
So well, and that's such a normal, honest answer that I wish more people would say. Of course they are. Certain types of people have a proclivity to certain types of behavior, whether we want to acknowledge it or not. Mm-hmm. And that's not every cop. Obviously, I know plenty of cops who are females and don't traffic women.
Yeah, but I'm very bad with this type of notion, because I know people say, you know, when it comes to this, like one rotten apple doesn't spoil the bunch, whatever. It completely fucks up my perception, because when you're in a job where you are supposed to hold the highest level of integrity and protect and serve, you better all be on the same fucking page. And you should not be fucking traffic girls. It's like, same thing with like the priests. I brought this up on a podcast before and people gave me shit for it. It's like, well, they're not all pedophiles. It's like, well, the amount is enough for me.
Listen, I say it often. I was born and raised Catholic.
So was I.
Yeah. So I know this is
I think that's why I'm like, oh my God.
Well, and that's the whole thing is like when you build a wall around the Vatican and you start taking them all and putting them in the Vatican to hiding them, we're just moving them to different cities and different towns and we're still not holding them accountable. Listen, I get religion and faith. I'm faithful. I'm very much, but I'm really struggling with that one. You can't have people who are supposed to hold positions of leadership and power, taking advantage of the lowest, most vulnerable people. Yes, exactly.
And it's very hard for me to look past that.
It's valid. You're in it all day, every day. It's expected.
So, no, because...
Have any of these cops been caught?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, but why haven't we heard about it then? I mean, obviously the liberal media, but give me another
because
answer.
there isn't any sort of major implications for them. They retire.
They retire.
They step down.
They're told to retire, but they're not charged with sexual assault.
No,
or
sometimes
trafficking.
there is a court case, but it's the charges are different because I mean, when your buddies are pressing the charges, or
for sure,
the Crown prosecutor is like, you know, mentored you or whatever. Then you may get like, I don't know, like an assault charge or sexual harassment or stalking, something like that.
You
right?
sound like the Canadian military leaders. They're big on protecting their own from assault. Yeah, big time.
And so that worries me for sure, and it's certainly prevalent here. Obviously in the US, it's a huge, I mean, any major airport you go into, there's just like anti-trafficking help phone numbers
stickers
everywhere.
So when you say, before you move on to the US, because this is obviously the US, we've known about this for a long time. When you're saying Canada, is this something you're seeing more West Coast? Are you seeing this far East? Or is this kind of like
I think it's across the board.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I would say
coming in from here, or?
Like I said, it's mostly domestic women.
So domestic women being trafficked within Canadian. The nation, though.
Yes.
Not outside of the nation.
No.
Okay.
No, from what I've seen, that could be a possibility, right? But what I can confirm is like, yes, Canadian women within Canada. Awesome. Vulnerable women who are, you know, fed drugs to the point where they can't even function. They believe that they're in this like loving relationship. The boyfriend is taking care of them, even though he's like fucking tattooing them rudimentarily, like in a basement. Well, I don't know about in a basement, but
maybe it's a basement. We can probably safe to say it's gonna have to have happened in a basement.
I try to paint the picture so people can really understand what this would look like. A lot of women who lack support, a lot of runaways, a lot of girls who grew up in the foster care system. Yeah. And so that's really unfortunate because it's really just girls who could have turned out like me, but just had absolutely no guidance and no one to protect them. And so now they're just being forced to work their ass.
Right.
It's horrible.
So the U.S., we see this. Obviously, we see them. It feels like there's more trafficking internationally with the United States.
Yeah. So a lot of girls from South America being brought through Mexico into the U.S.
What are they being brought through on? Is it the promise of a visa, promise of a husband, promise of a nanny job, promise of work?
No, it's a lot more blatant. It's like you're going to work as a stripper, or you're going to be a model, or you're going to do porn.
Wow.
And then they end up arriving in Mexico or an American border town, or like into Mexico and then move to the States, depending on what they look like in real life. And how weak they are. And I don't mean weak in a negative way. I
know what you're saying. There's a level. There's a level
of is she going to try to fight for herself?
Yeah. You know? She can be a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, they're being told, like, girls from Venezuela, right?
Yes.
That's a huge Venezuela, Colombia, Brazil, Guatemala, Ecuador. Okay. Really big ones.
How are they
Argentina.
I was going to say all of the South American, I just feel like all along the ring roads all the way up. I can see how that connection would be made. They're being
flown into Mexico.
They're being flown in.
And that's part of their debt. So that plane ticket becomes part of your debt. You get to stay in this apartment in Mexico City. Or in Cabo or in Puebla, that is also part of your debt. You have to work to pay off that debt. You use 5 pieces of toilet paper. That also is added to your debt. You go to the motel and your John doesn't pay for it. Now that's part of your debt. Yeah. You break the phone that they provided to you that has all the context of the tricks on it. That's your debt now. And so it's a never ending debt, which is how trafficking happens, right? It's like you go in with this idea that, okay, they're bringing me there. I'm going to work off for the money that they paid for me to get here. And then eventually I'll be independent. Whether they go and get a real job or continue to work as a hooker is a completely different conversation. But that debt never goes away. And there have been cases historically, and particularly in Mexico and Mexico City, where these girls were some of them were actually making bank. They managed to pay off the debt. They're trying to go independent. They die. That
was going to be my next question. Are they ever? Is that just
they're never free. They're never free. And that's what trafficking is, right? It's not like, it's very different than, I don't know, I want to say like having a pimp and maybe, no, but I think that's still trafficking, to be honest.
It's still classified.
So it doesn't matter how you go about it.
Or how much money you make. Either way, you're done.
You're done either way.
Unless you're pulled out by some police force or it's a raid or you're, removed from the situation.
And there are operators that are in South America that are doing that right now.
Oh, for sure. There's, from, again, our community, we transitioned very well into anti-trafficking after military.
Yes,
like
that's what they all are.
I know.
Yeah,
they're all military of some type.
Yeah, and they're all like, we're here to save these girls. I'm like, okay, you do that.
Yeah, because we couldn't save anybody overseas. So we have to fulfill our promise to the world in another way. Well, hey, go with God. Those are good people. I have a lot of friends, Glenn Devitt, all of these people who get out there and risk their lives to go grab girls and kids out of situations. That's something that I wish I had the tolerance for. It's being a mom now. It's like that's a different ball game for me. It makes me want to murder people violently. And apparently you're not allowed to do that anymore. Actually, unless you live in Canada. Unless you live in Canada, like the story, which I'm just going to shift off to for a quick second. Did you hear about the transgender individual neighbor who went in and raped the 3-year-old and was put out on bail? He was also a known sexual guy that was charged with another sexual violence. This was in Ontario. This was a couple weeks ago. He went in, parents were sleeping, and literally destroyed this little girl so bad. 3. Her parents had no clue. And he went right back to his house next door, and he had done this to a 12-year-old a couple years ago and was brought out again. And so this idea that you will be held to account in Canada is just a very different reality.
Sexual predators do really well in Canada.
Interesting how you say that.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's no checks and balances that keep them from reoffending. That's why also, like, another thing, we don't publicize in communities who's a sex offender, because they're trying to take on that sort of like, like Norwegian.
The stigma. We don't want to stigmatize the population.
It's because actually, statistically, sex offenders are already very much outcasts of society, and in their minds, they feel like they don't fit in, and they never have.
Yeah.
fair enough. And then when you publicly shame them, it actually like, I think doubles or triple. You have to check me on that, but it significantly increases their likelihood of reoffending.
Interesting.
So to an extent, I understand the not publicizing it, but there needs to be checks and balances in place if we're going to take that mentality of dealing with sex offenders, which is there needs to be an extreme rehabilitation to ensure that they're not going to reoffend.
They will always.
Except there are like, what is it? Is it Norway? I'm trying to think. I'm like,
it's always like Denmark or Norway or Sweden. I know.
It's always those countries, but because they do it properly. But we're trying to adopt that practice without fully adopting it or having the proper resources to do it. And so like, I didn't hear about this exact case, but I know that there was this one where this guy was re-released into Nova Scotia, I think, and he had killed that
I wrote about that on the Substack as well. He was in prison for a little while. He killed a little girl and cut her head off, and he had like
offended before that.
Yeah, and he was just recently let out, and he's walking around a very small town in Nova Scotia. A friend of mine lives in that area, and he's like, we know who he is and things like that. But going back to that, I think the real extreme is, I mean, I've always been a proponent post-military, because I can't say that during military. I don't believe in killing. I don't believe in killing. I've done enough of that in my lifetime to know that I don't believe in killing. That being said, I have a very aggressive line when it comes to sexual offenders, especially with children. I believe in public hanging. I really do. And
I'm a big proponent of capital punishment.
Yeah, I think it's necessary.
There's a lot of very evil people here, and I know I know that most people are not born evil people are not born evil. It's a lot of the circumstances that lead them to doing horrible things.
Except child sex predators. There has been cases now where there has been individuals who, there was a case in the United States of this gentleman who developed a brain tumor. Okay. Was totally normal life, kids, family, whole thing. And the tumor had started pushing on part of his brain where all of a sudden he started having these fantasies about children, and he knew it was off, and he went to his wife and was like, I'm feeling this way. There's a problem here. This is not right. And they did a scan on his brain and saw the tumor. They removed the tumor and it went away. So
I feel like I don't believe that. I need to see that to believe.
No. I can send it to you.
I feel like that, I don't know.
It was a really interesting, it's because there's parts of the brain that we know now individuals have different characteristics, like whether it's from head injury or otherwise, that bring on these types of behaviors. But the one thing about child sex predators, and the reason why they're trying so hard, especially in Canada and TED and all of these just ridiculous platforms, they're trying to normalize a conversation called minor attracted persons, pedophiles. So they're bringing this into the lexicon as a DEI. We should never call pedophiles. We should integrate them into society.
Oh, I don't engage in these topics because I know that we try to change language all the time. And
exactly. That's my point, though, is what I'm trying to say.
I'm a very straightforward person.
No. I'm the exact same. And this is why I have such a problem with it, though. If we just don't call people what they are, we don't tell people what they are, you're opening people up to putting their children and themselves in situations by playing with language that isn't giving them informed consent around who their kids are around. A great example is Karla Homolka. Do you know who Karla Homolka is? Okay, some people don't. So she, killed her niece, raped, murdered, all these terrible things. Her husband's still in prison, but she's been let out and given a whole new face and works at children's schools in Quebec. And so again, she raped and murdered her niece with a wine bottle, but she's still allowed to be around children because we can't be honest about what she is. She's a predator. She's a problem to society, but our taxpayer dollars give her ways to hide herself so she can continue to potentially reoffend. That's my problem. My problem is when we start to look at people that are dangerous and we're not telling people, we're not honest about the trafficking situations, we're not honest about the cartels in Canada, we're not honest about the ports or the railways or what the hell is actually happening. People pretend that they live in some beautiful society, and then they walk down to Starbucks and get stabbed in the fucking neck. So it's like, I have real issues when we're just not telling people what's really happening. That's why you're refreshing for Canada. The thing I wanted to ask about, though, that was a little different is I know that the cartels, we know trafficking, guns, and drugs have always been like the heart of what you hear in the stereotypes of Mexico. You hear about this, but there's a diversification happening. It feels like where cartels are getting smarter about things like oil theft, agriculture, water, internet services, and things like that. Are you seeing anything in terms of diversification around that?
Those means of financial pipelines have existed for decades. That's always been a thing for them. It was just a matter of they started having to diversify or, expand those pre-existing operations as the southern border got cracked down on, because drug and human smuggling became a lot more difficult. Mm-hmm. And so it's so unfortunate because when they really cracked down on the southern border, someone asked me, like, okay, what are they going to start doing? Are they going to increase the fuel theft? Mm-hmm. And I was like, yeah, that's what's going to happen. They're going to just start bringing on more independent American oil refineries mm-hmm. to sell them raw, like stolen crude oil. Mm-hmm. And that's going to be the majority of their money. They're probably going to go and take over a lot more agricultural land throughout Mexico so that they can be the main exports of avocados or whatever mm-hmm. it is. Unfortunately, it was a lot more violent than that, the expansion of what they started doing. And so the story that I just covered, and I was just in Juarez, Mexico, and Chihuahua, is that they are kidnapping women in late stages of pregnancy and then performing rudimentary C-sections, taking the babies and selling them to Americans. So that was a lot worse than I had anticipated that would happen with this border crackdown. I knew it was going to be ugly. And I know a lot of people were really praising, like, oh yeah, we cracked down on the American border. And I was like, you know what? I think that at a certain point, this is just going to highlight a lot of the flaws in the way American policy focuses on vilifying south of the border versus the people that are complicit on the U.S. side of the southern border. So whether that be looking inwards at the authorities who are meant to ensure that shit like that isn't happening, mm-hmm. The CBP officers who are on the payroll, and the Americans who are profiting off of the cartels. So I was a little bit hopeful because there was this family in Utah who got charged for buying the, not the babies, the crude oil from the cartels.
Okay.
And now everyone gets charged with an FTO designation. So it's like double wrecked because those charges are not to be played with. And so I thought maybe this is going to disincentivize a lot of these Americans mm-hmm. who are straw buying for the cartels, who are buying the crude oil, or even the major agriculture companies who are buying knowingly, perhaps to an extent, buying a lot of the fruits and vegetables that are coming from cartel run mm-hmm. regions. Now, what I didn't expect was to see this whole extremely tragic and violent human trafficking thing take off, infant trafficking, where you now have American straw buyers buying the babies and then selling it to Americans within the United States.
So for those that don't know what straw buying is from a cartel, can you...
Yeah, it's basically like a third party who provides the product to or from the illegal source. So like, for example, a big one is like arms straw buying. So a lot of Americans who will go and legally buy guns mm-hmm. at gun shops and then go and sell it to the cartels in Mexico. Or like the cartels will tell them what they need. Mm-hmm. They'll go into a gun store, get the product, and then take it across the border.
And they get through.
Yeah.
What's the percentage of them getting caught through the border with arms? Do you know?
Oh, well, going into Mexico from the state, like zero.
It's like, I know you're laughing. It's I don't cross by land very often. So.
Oh, yeah. No. You could walk in with really anything.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, it's not a problem. They don't even check anything. They don't check your passport.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Oh, girl. So then coming the other way from Mexico into the United States.
Yeah, they check, but we don't have guns coming in from Mexico into the United States.
Not at all, eh?
No.
Okay.
Because Mexico's gun policy mirrors that of Canada's gun policy.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So you can't like
own
open
anything.
carry. You can't. There's no gun stores. Okay. No, it's illegal. So that's why they rely on Americans to straw buy the guns for them. Yeah, and there is this number, and people always disagree with me, but over 70% of arms that are found at or connected to Mexican crime scenes are American manufactured guns.
It doesn't help the argument for guns.
Every single time that I've went and interviewed members of organized crime or cartels, narcos, whoever it is in Mexico, mm-hmm. and I'm like, show me what you're strapped with. It's always American-made guns.
Really?
Yeah.
Ammunition as well?
Yeah, everything.
Interesting. So let's go back to I know, and I can see the difference. I can see the difference when you talk about weapons and drugs versus when you switch over to humans. So
yeah, because that's the whole root of my journalism is human-based storytelling. And so when I see people who are disproportionately like really, mm-hmm. Their lives and livelihoods are devastated by organized crime, mm-hmm. that's sad. That's like, I don't know.
It should be sad.
Yeah, no, it's really bad. And like, because I go and typically, I become really invested in these kinds of stories. So when I went and covered this whole baby trafficking thing.
Yeah, that's insane.
I had been told by a law enforcement source that there were dozens of women who this had happened to, and this was a new operation that had started just a few months ago. And so I went through the female homicides in the last couple of months to see which ones may have aligned with what was happening. So who was pregnant, who was young, who came from a low socioeconomic background, stuff like who didn't seem to have actually like cartel ties, because a lot like they could be hits, right? Or there's like domestic violence, whatever. And unfortunately in Mexico they have a femicide problem, so a lot to avoid further investigation, a lot of the homicides, female homicides, are chopped up to domestic violence, or they were working with the cartel. So
it's an easy answer.
Yeah. So one of the girls really stood out to me because she was pregnant. Her name was Leslie Carrillo, and she was 20 years old. And she was 7 months pregnant when she was kidnapped. And then she was found dead without the baby and opened up.
So they cut her open, took the baby, and just left her body.
That's what I thought. And then when I went to Juarez, I interviewed a family member of this woman, because when I put out my report, the family actually saw that I mentioned Leslie's name.
Oh, wow.
And they were like, oh, Katarina knows that Leslie was a victim of this whole fucking ring.
Right.
And they haven't been able to get custody of the baby because the baby was actually saved. The baby didn't end up in the buyer's hands.
Wow. Oh, wow.
Yeah, because they opened up Leslie, and it was really horrible because the family member described it to me as they opened her up like a flower. And she didn't die in the process. So they repeatedly stabbed her chest and her neck and her face until she died. But her official cause of death in the police report was, what do you call it? I don't know the word in English. When you lose too much blood.
Yeah. Just blood loss.
So there's like a medical term for it, but yeah.
You hemorrhage when you have it like that. You hemorrhage, you just hemorrhage blood.
So they killed her. Something was wrong with the baby because the baby was it wasn't full term. It was 7 months, right?
Yeah, the lungs aren't developed yet.
So one of the women who was responsible for this whole ring, a woman.
Oh, that makes it so much worse.
That's what I thought too, because what the fuck do you mean?
Those are some
men,
sadistic
evil.
Women. We know that,
when
but
we
women?
see women doing it,
it's something different.
Right?
It's something very different. Yeah.
I know.
No, I agree with you on that.
So she took the baby to the hospital because something was wrong with the baby. And
so she risked being caught.
Told the hospital staff, I just gave birth to this baby. Help the baby. Hospital staff said, we have to check both of you.
Yeah.
She refused. They ended up sedating her and calling the police. And this was how this all came to fruition.
So the family doesn't have the baby?
Not yet. It's still with...
Wait, it would have to be in the NICU, I would think, a little while.
No, it's out of intensive therapy, but it's with the DIF, which is like a Mexican version of social services, custody, like
and
government
so they
custody.
can work to get the child.
That's what they're doing. Yeah, that's what we're trying to figure out here.
So then, if that's the case, so then they know who started this ring. She was the female who started.
So she's been charged.
Okay.
She was originally charged with trafficking and homicide. Okay. Trafficking charges were dropped, and now she's only charged with a homicide charge.
How is that possible?
Mexico.
So she's in Mexico, and this is the town that you were just in. When you're writing these stories, are you releasing them?
Oh, I didn't write the story. So I actually went with Ironclad, my cameraman and I.
Right, so with Ironclad, yeah.
Yeah, so we have like a whole mini doc.
This is the one you were just telling me about.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I'm like fucking exhausted.
Yeah, no,
which is why I came back to Canada because,
you needed
a minute of mine, right?
Yeah, no, I hear you.
So,
okay, this makes more sense now.
Yeah,
okay.
So we actually did like a whole mini doc. We're dropping that on the 25th.
Oh, amazing.
So I managed to really dive deep into this story. I met with the family member, and that was really sad. Yeah, that was too much.
When you say too much, like I'm going to flip-flop around here because I think it's really important to pay attention. Perfect, your episode's coming out right around the same time. I was just looking. I think it's really important to talk about the human toll of you. And obviously, I know that you're a very closed person in the way that you process and the way that you sit and the way that you move.
Because it's not about me.
Hey, that's cool. I hear you on that. But my show's also about the people. So you tell me to fuck off wherever you want. But I'm going to ask because I think it's important, because there is a toll that comes with this, with the jobs that we do and the people we talk to and the environments we place ourselves in, whether we want to act like hard asses or not. Like, you remind me of you, like me when I was your age, because at a certain point, you have to just do it in order to be able to tell the story, in order to be able to move forward, in order to be able to get justice for people, to wake people the fuck up. And I fully respect that 100%. But how the hell is it that you're constantly in these environments and you're not falling into alcoholism and drugs and into the, like, that's the truth, because
that's
how many people do you know,
I do
right?
not try drugs, because I know I'd love that shit.
You know that it would check you right out.
Yeah, and it's so funny because when you went on your little tangent here being like, I don't do drugs, I'm plant-based. I did that one time where I was like, I don't do drugs. And everyone was like, she 100% does drugs.
She does all the drugs.
But it's also because we're very high energy typically. And so people just don't understand that.
Yeah, no, like, we wouldn't be good with cocaine. Cocaine and I would not be friends.
I would love that
I know,
shit.
but that's why we couldn't. I know.
The way people explain it or write about it on Reddit.
I know.
I literally
don't read Reddit.
No, I have to.
I know.
Otherwise I would try it.
I know.
I have to live vicariously through some of these cokeheads, because otherwise I'm going to want to be snorting lines left, right, and center.
Listen, everyone tells me that too. You would be a maniac with coke, but like, it wouldn't, like, it's not, don't do it. And I'm like, I have no interest in that. I need anything to just make the scream stop and the noise go down. I don't need more ramping up. But I mean that, like, you genuinely at your age, I keep saying your age because I think it's important for people to understand that you can make a difference in this world any time in your life. You don't have to become some 40-year-old seasoned reporter who has decided that I'm now going to cover these stories. I know people that are in their late teens and their early 20s, like you're in your early 20s, that are going through this going, I want to make a difference in the world. And I genuinely want to tell people the human toll. What are you doing so different to keep your head on your shoulders?
I don't know.
I drink a lot. You do drink a lot, huh?
Okay, no, not like that bad.
You drink like an acceptable amount.
Especially for my age.
Yeah, like, I mean, you're 24, so it's not like I don't expect you to be sober.
Yeah, like, no way. That would just be weird. But I have a pretty good support system. Yeah. Like, everyone in my family. Yeah. Well, mostly men in my family.
Yeah, welcome to the club.
Yeah, so it's very much like I have good support. Yeah. I don't know.
Do you do anything different? Are you I know we talked about the Catholic thing, but do you pray?
No.
Do you have faith in any way?
No.
You've lost that with what you do,
I've never. No, from young, my mom died when I was 4 years old. So I always knew.
Okay.
That doesn't exist. Oh, I hate talking about this.
No. Hey,
I don't know. I think I'm really just locked in to telling the stories. And I understand that, okay, these people deserve a voice. There's really impactful stories to tell. So that's my job. That's how this is supposed to be done. And when I spoke to the family member of Leslie, the girl who was killed, she started crying, and we did the interview in the car in a parking lot because we were both scared that it was a setup.
Oh, I know, because I saw your vibe when you came here today. You're like, I don't record down here. I was like, I'm not going to bite you. I promise. You can give me a hard Google. I promise.
No, you're fine. But her and I didn't.
It's a reality.
I didn't know who I was meeting with. She wasn't sure that she would be meeting with me.
Right.
So, and she's being extorted since Leslie was killed.
Oh no.
The family's being extorted. So that's typically where that paranoia stems from. And then she tells me that Leslie actually leaves behind, so obviously her son, the baby that was taken out, but also a 4-year-old daughter. Oh, and that's the same age I was when my mom died. And then the family member tells me that the daughter is asking, where's my mommy? And they're telling the daughter that mommy's in heaven. And the little girl says, well, then I want to go to heaven. I want to die too.
Right. Yeah.
So it's not about making a change in the world or I'm not going to change the world, and I'm not naive, but it's a matter of, okay, well, maybe if someone who is literally perpetually living a tragedy feels like they can get some sort of justice and I can help them achieve that, that's enough. That's good. Because I can't do much more than that.
Right.
But if we can put your story out there to ensure that there is some sort of pressure to ensure that, okay, no more charges are dropped on this woman.
Yeah.
This woman is not let out. Right. That this cannot happen to any other young women. That's enough.
Is it enough for you?
Yeah. Yeah. What else am I supposed to do?
I mean, is it enough for you?
Would I like to go and fucking kill the people who do this? Yeah.
Yeah, but
not going to do that.
But like when you're talking about, I want to tell other people's stories. I want to keep their memories alive. I want to put pressure on their governments. I want to make a difference. I want to impact them. So who tells your story?
Oh, I don't need to tell my story. I'm happy and I'm grateful with my life and everything about this. Mm-hmm. I have a lot to be grateful for. There are other people who cannot say the same. They're constantly going through stuff. My story doesn't matter. That's not what I'm in this for. Mm-hmm. It's about everything else that's going on. I choose to go to these horrible places and cover a lot of this tragic shit. Mm-hmm. These people do not choose to become victims of it.
Right. Do you think that you're uniquely positioned to handle trauma due to your loss very young?
Oh yeah. I'm very mentally strong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, your demeanor shows.
Yeah, and I'm Slavic.
Yeah, we clocked that a little. We clocked that the second you walked in.
I don't need emotion.
Emotion's not a bad thing, but
I'm not very sensitive. Like I'm sensitive with the individuals I speak to, and I can understand.
Because you have empathy to get their
story. I lead with
story.
empathy and compassion, 100%. But for me, yes. I'm not a victim.
Yeah. Yeah.
And bad shit happens to everyone. Unfortunately, some really bad shit happens to other people a lot more.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess I always ask this. I ask this to a lot of the people that I work with that do this work or that are involved in these spaces. Like, trauma's real, secondary trauma's real, what you go through is real. We're still human beings. We still have the similar DNA. We're going to feel it, whether we process it in a certain way or we don't process it at all. Where do you want to go in your career? Like, what do you want next? And like, how do you see yourself sustaining this? Because you want a family one day, I don't know if you do, I'm just saying, if you want a family one day, you have children one day, how do you see yourself moving forward down this path? Because the cost is real. Like, the cost is real to the stories you're telling, to the people that you're talking to, but the cost is real for you and everything and every person you interact with, your energy, your family, those that are around. So the cost is real and it bleeds out whether we like it or not. So how do you see yourself next? Like, what do you see next? And how do you see yourself moving forward like that?
I think, honestly, no matter where my path takes me, mm-hmm. The storytelling aspect will always stay alive in that.
Yeah.
Like, every path has its weight to carry. And honestly, wisdom comes in knowing just like which weight you're going to carry. That's end of the day. So for me, no matter what I do going forward, every decision is essentially rooted in, okay, how are we going to keep the public informed, critical, and ensure victims get a platform for their voices? I've been like that my whole life. I've always been interested in that. And I was always tuned in to these global stories. Loved Anthony Bourdain, Parts Unknown. He was very much human-based storytelling. There's a lot of other journalists. Lisa Ling has always been like that. There's a lot, and even just like authors that I really enjoy, who very much keep people's essence or message alive through their storytelling. Yeah. So, for example, when I met with the family member of Leslie, mm-hmm. and I was like, okay, yeah, we can talk about the details about what happened to this girl, but what was she like? And what kind of mother was she like? Mm-hmm. And how did she feel knowing that she was going to have a son? Like, so many things that I'm curious about, because I think especially now we're so, with social media and everything, we're so hyper exposed to a lot of global tragedy and like extreme amounts of it that we forget to humanize a lot of what's going on.
Yeah.
And that makes it actually pretty easy for me to get that component, because I think because it's lacking so much in a lot of our coverage these days, that if I go in and my lead is like, okay, tell me about this person, so that everyone watching this story or reading this story has a person in mind. You know, you have that's the protagonist. That's the main character. Mm-hmm. And like when you're reading a novel, for example, if you can't relate or kind of get into the mind of the person, the protagonist of that novel, you're not going to enjoy the story that's unfolding before you.
It won't resonate with it. You won't take anything from it.
It won't. Even if you're completely different than that protagonist, you have to be able to kind of grasp how they think, how they feel, and how they lead in their lives.
Yeah.
So that's a key with these kind of stories. And that's even what I do when I do the organized crime stuff.
Right.
Let's understand the criminals. Let's understand the politicians. Let's understand all of the people in between. Because that way, even if you can't appreciate in a bad way or a good way what they're doing or the decisions they're making, you can still to an extent understand it. And if you can't, that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine. But you've done your best to lay it out to give them that genuine understanding. When you're looking at your stories that you're telling and you're being like, I can see where this comes from for you. Like I can genuinely see it. Like it's the way you move and everything. I can see where it comes from and this want to be able to protect in a different way because this is your way of doing that. If you can tell people stories, you can let them know about corruption. You can let them know this is happening to somebody in their town. Then they can protect themselves in a way by being educated on what's going on.
Yeah. And like even for this story, I broke the story. There's not been a single press release about it. None of the young women have been warned about what's going on.
Right.
We drove by the house where Leslie's body was found, and the only people that were walking around in that neighborhood alone were literally young women. And I was like, they have no idea what's going on.
No.
So yeah, to an extent, it's like, well, if the very people who are supposed to protect you aren't doing it, at least our coverage can inform people so that they have a means to protect themselves and stay informed about what's going on in their community.
Right. And that's what I mean. I think this is why it's important that you do what you do, because you're not in my eyes, I don't see you as a journalist. I see you as a storyteller, one that the journalist can feed real information from, actual authentic information from, and write about if they have the balls to do so. But you're a storyteller where you bring out the human component that is often left out of almost any article you'll read, especially in Canada lately. When you're talking about the assaults on children, we don't say the trans person that had a proclivity to raping young kids. We say the mentally disturbed individual. We don't even say mentally disturbed. We say the individual's neighbor who just happened to be. We're not honest. We're not, like you said, I don't like words. I don't like to mince words. I like just tell me what it is.
But I also think to an extent that isn't a reflection of Canadian journalists. It's a reflection of the way the legal system has
100%.
kind of began to operate to, in a way, silence journalists. There's
100%.
every fucking case now, publication ban on everyone.
Yeah.
And so how are you supposed to even tell a story when you can't name anyone, you can't describe anyone, you can't name the victim or the perpetrator or anyone around the perpetrator or the victim? So that's more of a reflection of the way the legal system is operating as opposed to the journalists. Because I know a lot of really great Canadian journalists who they're writing those stories where they
just won't be published.
But no, I mean, they're writing the stories where it's just bare bones, but they have no choice. And they're really doing the best they can within the legal framework that they've been given.
And I wish, this is what I would love to see more Canadian journalists do. I had a friend of mine step out and I said, do the same thing. It's so important that you start a Substack.
Yeah, so but it's not easy.
No. Hey, I started a Substack last year. And I was honest about it. I said, I'm going to write some stuff that's going to make you radically uncomfortable that you're not going to hear anywhere else. And I don't really care about the legal ramifications. I don't care. I'm done with caring now, because if we continue to allow a system that's broken, that's corrupt, that is paying these outlets to very carefully curate an ideology that is more than just protecting the victim or protecting the perpetrator, and only push out data like that, it's not a shock to me that people are surprised that when I tell them, in White Rock, that, oh, did you hear about the guy that just got stabbed in the neck outside of Vancouver? They're like, what are you talking about? That doesn't happen here. And I'm like, oh, did you not see it? They're like, no, they didn't report it on CBC. I'm like, because they can't report it on CBC. They're not going to report it on CBC. You can't talk about it. And I've even had clients where I've said, who are very big reporters, go start a Substack anonymously. Go start it anonymously. Put the information out there, because then other people can pick it up who are willing to say the hard thing out loud. With what you're doing next and how you're kind of growing your platform, because that's really what you're doing. You've done an incredible job putting yourself in the public eye in a very uncomfortable way that I don't know if you ever thought you would do.
Yeah, I didn't want to actually do that.
Well, this is what I'm genuinely curious.
It's so weird because I never got into this for any fame or validation, but because I started doing independent reporting, people need to consume your stories.
Well, that's how you get it out there.
And also because I'm independent, people need to believe you and feel like they can trust you and that you have a level of credibility.
Yeah.
And so then I just started making my reports more public. Yeah, because I was doing a lot of Substack stuff. I still do it, but it's just a lot to manage.
Well, you have a lot of different things that you need to be focused on right now as well. So it's understandable, but it's there.
But thank you to all my Substack subscribers. Really, I do appreciate it. And I will be posting.
She's coming back. Don't worry. We all take a moment of pause.
I do feel guilty about it. But,
don't.
So, but there had to be some sort of, I guess, like publicity around the stories. So
you're not wrong.
People could actually, access them. And so then I started going on some people's podcasts who were interested in my work just to talk about what was going on at the southern border, what was going on with the organized crime groups, what I was reported on, who I was interviewing. And then people started to, like, people who were really into that niche and that coverage, it started to gain some traction. And then even people who kind of dabbled with it or weren't really sure, they started to get into it. And so then that was great because now, I kind of have the opportunities to go and dive deep into stories that really matter and that are really hard to dig deep on and to investigate. But there's a lot of people now who are like waiting for it and they want to know more. And I'm seeing how my reporting and the stories that we're talking about are reaching higher levels, and reaching the ears of people who can actually implement some sort of change. So that's very effective. But it's very weird because no journalist wants to become the story. So when that line is blurred of, well, what you asked me, what's your story? It's like, who cares?
I care.
But the point is, I'm the messenger. So I'm supposed to gather the information and the details, bring it to the public, and then you guys take all of that and form your own opinions and see how you feel about it.
Do you think that because I have a different proclivity to people, because I also, like I said, I see things in people that make me uncomfortable, and it's only because I've been through it, so I see it. So I can't unsee it. You know, when you see stuff now, you're like, no, I can't unsee that, and everyone walking around. I see that. And that's why I ask about you, because I've seen you on my friends' shows. I know on the shows you're going on, and I know the version that's going to come out, and you're going to focus on the stories. But I think with you as a human being and as a female, it is a very interesting position you put yourself in, and at a very high risk as a female going into these spaces, having that conversation. And the reason I point out the female aspect is because I actually think it's 2 times more dangerous at a bare minimum for you to be doing what you're doing. But I also think shielding yourself and protecting yourself by going and being on these bigger platforms is going to help you long term. It's a lot easier to disappear somebody who doesn't really have a voice than it is that everybody knows in the globe. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, let's hope so.
Well, I'm very optimistic for you on this front. You've covered all the bases in terms of people I know and shows that we all have very similar listeners stylistically, but then we also have a lot of different fringe outsides that you're covering so many bases with, right? I don't know how many females you've sat down and podcasted with before.
Oh, you're the first one.
Thank you. I
it's
appreciate
always
it.
Men.
Hey, welcome to my entire existence. I very rarely get interviewed by women for a reason. But the reason I'm bringing that up is because I think there is a self-sacrifice that happens in this job, whether you like it or not, whether you see it till later, or whether it is just buried deep down. I care about the person that's also telling the story, because the person that's telling the story, I care about the character of that person, because I will listen to people differently when I know that person's character versus when it's just some journalist writing something. I don't know who you're paid for. I don't know what you do. I don't know your thought process. Are you fucking the person that's being trafficked too? Like, do you know what I'm saying? There is a real reality here where you have access to sketchy situations, where it's drugs, whether it's money, whether it's cartels, whether it's trafficking. And I think it matters to know who these people are. I think your story, whether you agree with me, you don't have to agree with me. Most people don't fucking agree with me. But I think it's important to know who you are, because you matter just as much as those stories, because your character is writing those stories, your opinions, your thoughts, and your feelings.
And I think that comes through in my reporting.
This is why I wanted to talk to you.
Which is why, I don't ever really have to sit down and be like, let me tell you every single morsel of myself.
My
trauma. Because my reporting reflects, I would hope, my character and the way I operate. So that for me is enough.
Yeah, it moves people. The way you write moves people, because you can see that you are not somebody who's been spoon-fed through privilege, who now just writes stories because they're interesting to her. You connect to these people in a different way that I don't even know that you fully realize when you're writing.
Well, to be fair, especially in comparison to a lot of the people that I talk to and who my stories are based around, like I feel like I'm a very privileged person for sure. And I've thankfully have had the privilege to actually get to the point where I am today.
Well, you worked to gain that trust. And I think that's the difference.
Yeah.
With a lot of people is people don't want to talk to journalists for a reason. It makes them nervous, especially around the subject matter that you're discussing.
It is because it's very polarized and the stakes are very high.
Yeah.
We're not talking about some vapid topics. We're talking about crime. We're talking about politics. And most importantly, we're talking about money. And so when people's finances are on the line, when we're, you know, trying to expose certain things that could tangibly impact financial pipelines for very dangerous people, that's very scary. And also it's the implications of that could be life altering.
Yeah. 100%. Hey guys, this episode is brought to you by Good Livin'. I am so excited to tell you about something that's become such a meaningful part of my wellness routine, Good Livin'. Now, this isn't any brand. This is actually a brand I know all of the owners behind. And let me tell you, their integrity, their dedication, and their quality is the real deal. Their microdosing and functional blends are crafted with intention, and you can feel it. Everything is tested and made to support you in tapping into your own rhythm. We're talking about blends for anxiety, depression and stress, ADHD, brain health, inflammation, sleep, and energy. Seriously, they have thought of everything possible. I know firsthand how much love they pour into every single product. So if you're ready to check them out and explore more, go to itsgoodlivin.com, and trust me, it's a journey worth taking. That's itsgoodlivin.com, itsgoodlivin.com, and make sure to use the code Kelsi and get 20% off your first order today. I just want to finish with one of these questions, and we're going to go back and forth here, but you talked about the financial pipelines. We know there's a lot of different incentives. You saw, I don't know, I'm just going to assume, not trying to be disrespectful, I'm sure you saw what Trump had said about Venezuela. And the second, you know, if we buy oil from there, there's your 25% tariff. And then any secondary country afterwards is going to buy it. But the United States is buying Venezuela oil.
Yeah. So, okay. I truly believe that the FTO designation initially was actually like a ploy to really target Maduro in Venezuela.
Specifically.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because of what we're seeing now, the oil, we see how they really are taking boots on the ground, textbook warlike actions on the coast, you name it. And so, yeah, there's a lot more than meets the eye with this kind of policy, and there's a lot of money on the line.
Yeah.
And so I think now, did they just say that Exxon can start operating there again? Yeah.
That's what I heard.
Yeah. So a lot of us need to start reading between the lines with these sort of policy changes and how we're looking at geopolitics.
Yes.
Venezuela, I believe, is the main target here.
Yeah.
And when you're looking at a place that is rich in resources, that has government instability and economic instability, where people literally cannot get groceries, women are being trafficked at extreme rates, children are starving, that is, I would say, a failing society. And I don't mean that in an offensive way. I just mean that's not how a society is supposed to operate or succeed, right?
Yep.
So now, looking at, okay, everyone thought, I mean, even myself, oh, Trump is cracking down on the cartels. Trump is cracking down because what was the initial incentive that the administration had said? Fentanyl deaths in the U.S.
100%.
That's bullshit.
Yep.
Yeah. The fact of the matter is, there is this desire to control the politics within Venezuela, who is leading that country, and the access to very lucrative amount of oil deposits, for sure.
I think this is no different than the war we went and fought on a lie. And I think it's no different the second a president or any government official starts saying illegitimate president, you're talking about a regime change. You're not talking about what the problem actually is. You're talking about...
We saw the same thing happen with Gaddafi, like
Syria, Iraq, Iran.
It's the history book repeats itself every single time. Yeah. And so I try not to get really too into the weeds with this because it's also sort of out of my...
It's out of your pocket?
Yeah. It's out of my... Yeah. Okay. This is out of my scope, and I don't like to sound like some freaky conspiracy theorist, but also over the course of the years of covering a lot of this stuff, you start to realize that reality is a lot scarier than fiction. Mm-hmm. And sometimes when you like dig deep enough, you start to unveil and unravel more and more truths that perhaps seemed like a load of shit that aren't. And a lot of people have their own agenda. And when we're talking about this intersection of politics, crime, resources, and money, you will see that up until like the highest levels, someone is always profiting and someone always wants to profit more, which to me is very scary. Like I find, so.
No, I think it's important to talk about. The reason it being like we saw, Donald Trump come out and say, okay, we're doing this Mexico. Okay, we're going to do the FTOs. And now we're going to hit Venezuela. And this is an illegitimate government. Yet we're going to continue buying the oil from them. But we're going to tariff everybody else, but we won't buy oil from Canada because we won't allow our oil out. There's just a lot of very, I like how you stated reading between the lines that needs to happen here in order to process information and data that we're getting. If you were to look at any story that you've covered, because you've covered a significant amount now in your tiny life, your tiny little life, what is the one that you feel like you made the biggest impact with that sat with you?
It's going to be this one, the Juarez baby trafficking one, for sure.
Yeah. Your face and body language shifted the second you brought that one up.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, well, are you a psychologist or some shit?
No, I've just been through enough trauma to watch it.
I'm fine. I'm not traumatized.
I've never said you were. I've said you've seen some shit.
I think everyone, I was like, I have so much trauma. I'm like, get over it. Go have a fucking tea and watch a movie.
This is why I knew you were going to be great. You were going to be exactly what I hoped.
But everyone wants to be a victim. Like, come on.
You know what? People want to be a victim. But here's the thing. I'll tell you. I'm a performance coach, and I read people for a living. This is what I do. What I'll tell you is that there's trauma that makes people, and there's trauma that breaks people, and you get to be the decision maker. Is it going to be the victim, or is it going to be the thing that builds you? It's going to be the thing that feels you.
What's happening? Because like some shit that I cover, I'm like, I wouldn't survive that mentally.
Oh, for sure. But that's my point. But then you cover it though, and you survive covering it because you're at arm's length. It's not
happening to me. I didn't have a baby ripped out of my body.
No, you didn't. But you only witnessed it, talked to the families, impacted it, absorbed it, felt the energy of it. And now we're probably going to follow that story and that family for the rest of your life.
And this is going to be a very big story because it implicates Americans.
Which is wild too when you think about that. We knew it. Listen, we knew it. People buy babies. This is not new. This has happened.
In cold blood is a whole different
situation. Because now you're talking about, this whole ideology of ICE, we want to take all these people out, but then we drop them back in Mexico and we're stealing their kids to bring them back. Like, hey, something's messier here. More people are going to be implicated in this. You can't tell me you're just bringing kids across the border all of a sudden under this new administration. And there aren't questions being asked why a brand new baby doesn't have passports or documentation.
There was fraudulent documentation.
I was going to ask you.
But I am really curious to see how Washington is going to react to this type of story.
Right.
I know that it is on the radar after my first report. And I'm very hopeful that the narrative is not, oh yeah, look at these savages south of the border, what they're doing. I hope that the narrative is very much, why are Americans buying these babies?
Right.
And I'm under the impression that the people buying these babies certainly knew that, of course, they're getting them from illegal means. And so that's a reflection of that side of the border. So we need to stop polarizing this and understand that this all happens within itself here. Like, this is not one guy versus another guy.
Right.
So I think like this one, but I've also just been like living and eating and breathing this story for the past couple of weeks. So it's top of mind.
Right.
But aside from that, I think another story that was really impactful,
when you close your eyes at night, which one pops? There's always going to be
a
one.
Canadian one.
Okay, yeah. Hit me with it.
When I was at the CBC and there was this little girl, this 8-year-old girl who
so sorry you had to work there.
No, I loved it.
Okay.
I had a great
You're
experience.
You're a better person than me.
my colleagues there were awesome. I learned so much, and I had a lot of freedom on what I got to cover and how I got to tell the stories.
Yeah.
It gave me a lot of tools to become like the journalist that I am today.
I'm here for it. If they did something right for once, I'm proud of them.
It was really, I had a really positive experience, and a lot of the people from the CBC to this day, like, really support my reporting and what I do. And so
yeah, you're a good journalist, and so they should.
It's really nice. They're really good people. So lots of talented journalists there.
Journalists are great. The top or not. We'll leave it there.
So I don't know. I never met the people at the top.
Don't worry about them.
So, there was this 8-year-old girl, and she was murdered, like, very brutally by her stepmom. And that was horrible, because that was another story where I got really close to it, and I was interviewing family members, and it seemed like no one was advocating for her, and that she was just doomed from the start.
Right.
So that was really traumatizing, because it just was this little girl who had absolutely no one. She was alone. She was being severely abused for a while. Yeah. And it just came out. I actually had a colleague from the CBC just reach out to me, because I went to the apartment building where the little girl was murdered. And I just had someone reach out to me and be like, it's in this area where there's multiple of the exact same apartment buildings.
Yep.
And she's like, which one was it? And I was like, why, what the fuck is the update here? Because this is years ago now that I was at the CBC. But this is how the Canadian legal system works, right? So apparently, they're trying to get the murderer to enter to this plea deal, which will only give her 8 years in prison. And for the first time ever, Edmonton Police Service.
This was the case?
Yeah.
I know exactly what case you're, they're
how
stepping
they
forward
advocated and said, we do not recommend it. Yeah.
No, that person is not getting a plea deal. They're stepping in. They've never stepped in. Never.
And it's crazy, because when I was working there, I did not like the Edmonton Police Service, because they did not cooperate with me. And it was like, we get like a horrible case like this press release on a Friday at 5 p.m. And it's like, how are we supposed to chase this story now, right? It was like very much
intentionally given that way. Yeah.
At least that's how I felt.
Yeah.
So seeing this redeemed everything for me, because this was one case where I was like, I want to see justice, and there's absolutely nothing I can do about it, except keep the girl's memory alive. So I talk about it all the time, and I wrote about her on my Substack, like, a long time ago now.
Good for you.
And I probably actually broke the publication ban on the Substack, but
good for you.
Whatever. People try to legally attack me all the time.
Welcome to the club.
Sorry, what, you want me to pay a fine and move on?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like YouTube. Watch the video, so we'll take your strikes away. No. Like, not watching your videos.
What do you want? Okay.
Yeah.
Sure.
No. Yeah. I get it. I understand what you're saying. But the reason I bring it up is because we all have those moments where, I say we all, I mean, people who pay attention or do what we do or talk about the way we talk about, we all have those moments when you close your eyes and you're like, I want that story to live. I want that person to be known. I want their memory to be alive. Say their name, be a part of it. We saw over the past week, whether you supported what Charlie Kirk said or did, there is a different thing happening right now. And it's important to say people's names. It's important to acknowledge how they impacted, whether it was just the 8 years on this earth, or whether it was an elderly person, or whether it was somebody who has had their second baby and had just the most horrific death you could possibly have. It's so important to keep their stories alive, because if we're not going to learn from the losses of these people,
then it just happens again.
It happens again, and we don't, especially children.
And that's the degradation of society. It is. So it's not.
It's a symptom of a sick society when we start forgetting the people that lost their lives to these tragedies that we're too busy. Our coffee's cold. They spelt our name wrong on the fucking cup.
Or it's not happening in your backyard, which I do understand to a certain extent.
Of course.
It's hard to care about something that isn't directly impacting you.
Well, it's funny though you say that though, because everybody can care about Ukraine. So, I mean, why can't we care about the little girl that was murdered in Edmonton?
Because I think that care is different. It's like, it's ideological. It's they care about an idea of support. But I mean, ask anyone who says like, oh, end the war in Ukraine or whatever people advocate for nowadays. Be like, okay, name me like some victims and tell me about, but for them, it's like the idea of what's going on, which I think is fine, but I like to see people who are very tuned in to current affairs and to what's going on around them. But I think it's a lack of compassion. And I understand we do live in a society where if it's kind of every man for yourself, if you're not protecting yourself, no one is going to protect you. But yeah, I don't know. There is the capacity to lead with more compassion and some understanding about, okay, we need to at least be aware of what's going on.
I think people have compassion fatigue, and I think people have convenient outrage symptom, which, is just
what's convenient outrage symptom?
It's basically when people from whatever's convenient. So like when Ukraine first popped, everyone put Ukrainian flags in their bio. All of a sudden, people who didn't care about anything are now their only talking point is pro-Ukraine. Okay, cool. It's no different than the Afghan pullout when we abandoned 3,000 Canadian visa holders, and then we shut off the websites and the email addresses, and then they had to call people like us to come get them. And it's called convenient outrage. We didn't actually care about women's rights in Afghanistan because now they're wearing burqas and only allowed one eye, and they're still being that's my line.
Really, I know.
Right? So it's like we don't actually care about women's rights. We care when it's convenient for us to be outraged.
I think people just become outraged depending on where the news cycle falls.
That's what I mean. It's convenient. It's convenient outrage.
It's breaking news, so you're shocked about it.
You should be caring about it until like 2 seconds later, and then the story moves on.
But nowadays, like, the news cycle recycles really fast. So
horrific.
It's really hard to keep up.
There is that absorption, that like fatigue from it.
Yeah. But that's why I actually like Substack too, because I think that people can go. We should be sponsored by Substack, actually.
Yes.
We've been blowing it up this whole time.
Listen, I just started it a few months ago, and
it's so good.
I'm obsessed with it. I just rage out on it, and I write articles, and it feels like it gives me I'm a writer, but I write novels. I don't write Substack. So it's just a different outlet for me. I feel like personally where you can read at your own pace and you can follow people who you feel like you can trust or from other things.
That's what I like about it. And you don't really get that fatigue because you can choose like the content that you're passionate about or interested in. Yeah. And a lot of my subscribers are super locked in. Like they're like, hey, did you see this? And they're DMing me after. It's so cool.
I know.
Or they ask me questions on there and I'm like, that's a good question.
I didn't even think about that.
Instagram questions, and I was like, that's a stupid fucking question.
Yeah.
There are stupid questions. But on Substack, it's a lot of people who that's what they care about or they're interested in.
Yeah.
But now we're just so inundated with constant tragedy and news. So I can understand why people don't care, or they try to care in the moment and then they become fatigued. Yeah, for sure.
It's just fatigue. I mean, you can only take on so much and then pay your bills and go to work, look after your kids, have PTA, care about your school boards, go to the gym, not drink your face off. Yeah, I get it. The goal in life for what we do, I think, is just don't become alcoholics.
I know. That's actually, like, I'm not even joking.
Dude, I'm like, I knew you were going to be, I'm so stoked. I was so grateful. What time have we got here? Perfect timing. I was beyond grateful when you answered the DM because I believe that there needs to be more attention on women that are willing to risk their life in a different way. And I'm not a feminist by any means. I only worked with men, but I also know that there is a type of woman that it requires a specific type of person to go in and do these jobs and get a different compassionate viewpoint from the mothers, from the women, from these people who are being trafficked. And you give them, without even necessarily realizing it, you hold space for them where they can smash off the walls, say all the hard things, and there's no judgment.
Yeah, that's the goal. That's definitely goal is to give them a place to really just let it rip. And I am a feminist because that's what gave me the opportunity.
Are you a new feminist or are you a real feminist?
I'm like real. Like I benefited off the cores of feminism that got me. If feminism doesn't exist, I would not be here. We would not be here.
Right. But there's a type of feminist.
I would be cooking a fucking a meatloaf or whatever people made back in the day.
I fuck with meatloaf. Don't sleep on meatloaf.
I don't even cook. So
okay. Well, listen, I feel you. Listen, I
can make it happen. I can't make it.
Yeah, we can Google it. We can have someone cook it for us. But like
Uber Eats.
Yeah, Uber. Can you make me meatloaf, please? But no, I think it's important. I think it's important to acknowledge, and it's always great to be able to sit down with very driven A-type women who are actually changing the world, not talking about it on social media and selling some makeup product, who just frankly, I mean, good for you for getting sponsors, but
we do what we got to do.
We do. Hey, just don't sell that ass. That's what I want from you. Yeah, just like, please don't start that.
I never.
Hey, I just have to say it. Your writing is too good. Your journalism is too good.
You do not have to sit here and try to convince me not to sell ass. I would have been doing that if that was the case.
You were like, I would have started. I would have
driven here in a Porsche if I was selling ass.
Listen, hey, I wouldn't have judged you either. I got girls that do it, and I'm like, I love you, girl. You just be safe, do you, boo. But I'll always support people's choices. But I think that your Your journalism is going to stand the test of time in a way.
Thank you.
And I think that's what's really important here is you are willing to risk your life to tell the stories of people who otherwise would have gone unheard for the rest of time. Mm-hmm. And I think that's why it matters what you do. And it's why I wanted to make you my 300 episode, because you deserve the opportunity to be looked at in a way that most journalists, they should never get the attention that they get. You actually care about the victims and the families, and that is just not something I see in media anymore. So I am personally grateful as one of your readers and supporters.
Thank you.
But I know that so many of the people that listen to the show are as well. In saying that, you just said you have a big thing coming out, this amazing docuseries.
So on Borderland Dispatches, my show, we're coming out with the whole breakdown of what's happening with these women and their babies in Juarez. That's coming out on the 25th of September.
That's coming out soon. This episode will come out around the same time. But how can people support what you do, your safety? How can people help you out on your Substack when you do start getting full-time back into it? Like, what is it that they
subscribe to my Substack.
Okay.
Send news. Okay. Katarina Szulc's Substack. Okay. And then Borderland Dispatches.
Social medias?
Yeah, Katarina Szulc on everything.
Just on everything.
Instagram, Twitter.
All the stuff, all of it. Well, I appreciate you dearly. And for those that are more curious, we'll put everything in the bio so you guys can just click and go ahead and follow her. Don't be fucking weird. Don't be weird. I know a lot of you are weird. Don't be weird.
That. Please do not be fucking perverted. I hate this age of open perversion. It pisses me off.
Listen, you got to admit you're pretty. Get over yourself. Like, you're going to get
doesn't give anyone.
It doesn't give them a right, but you're out there. They're going to say some stuff. I don't know. Don't be pretty.
I see some hotties on Instagram too. I'm not messaging them. Hey, baby, let me touch those abs. The fuck?
I touch those abs. Hey, I get the feet ones. So
I just got a foot one.
Did you?
Yes.
Yes. See, you get it.
I just got a foot one.
The feet are a real gig. You don't have to sell your ass. You can sell your feet.
So weird. I don't want to sell my fucking feet.
I'm just saying. Let's see how rough it gets out there for you. I expect in the next few months you're not going to have any problems getting anything. So I'm not concerned for you at all whatsoever. But for those of you listening and just don't be weird, message her, support her. If you guys have tips, stories, other things, go to her Substack, give her some love there. And most importantly, when you're reading these stories, be honest with yourself. They're heavy reads. They're heavy things. These episodes are heavy. Take a breath. Go hug a loved one. Know that this is going to pass, but be honest about what you're seeing. Be honest about what you're hearing, and go tell somebody about it so the rest of us can stop living in delusion and we can start being honest about the countries we live in. And then go support her. Go subscribe to the show. Check out the sponsors. Everything's in the bio, and we will see you all next week.